price tag on life. Our job is to safeguard the state of Israel, and that is what we're doing.
It's a great success. Do you want to develop it? And is there any plan to develop?
Development is not what the IDF is doing.
Peter,
Yes,
all over the world, people are asking this question: is there going to be a ground offensive in Gaza? You seem saying today that you're still preparing. You're preparing for urban warfare. So do you mean there's going to be a ground offensive on Gaza?
No, I mean that we are preparing for that possibility. We have to have, hope is not a method. The IDF cannot wake up in the morning and hope that we will operate well in the battlefield. We need to be prepared, so we have the forces training, we have the forces taking the necessary steps, have the forces with the right equipment, all in order to carry out the operation if required.
Will it be a series of commando-like actions or more a massive ground offensive?
Well, the Naval Commando activity that was exposed yesterday is a small special operations type activity that does not necessarily equate to ground activities. The activities that we are, the regular ground forces are preparing for are much more wide scale.
And what is it precisely? I mean, could you specify what do you mean by ground offensive?
Ground offensive could be anything from battalion to brigade to division mobilization, depending on the scenario and depending on the type of threat we meet. It could be a gradual military operation which has different objectives, and it depends on the type of threat, because we are depleting the capabilities of Hamas. We are striking the terrorist tunnel infrastructure. We are taking the fight to them so that they do feel pursued. And the ground force operation, which would be the last, I would say, the last opportunity or the last perhaps necessity, will be utilized only if absolutely required.
What do you say about the critics that say that the Iron Dome is not working as well as the military are saying, that sometimes the booms that we hear are not really interception, that there's some disinformation going on?
I want to be on TV as well.
I think the actions speak louder than words, and the interception rate, is clear to everybody. The rockets were planned to smash into the civilian population, and they were unsuccessful.
It's been reported that the success rate has gone from something like 80% to 90%. What improvements have been made so that you can target more accurately?
I can't go into those, I'm afraid.
There is a statement by Hamas this morning on more drones that they launched. Did you notice just one or many of them?
We have to be prepared for these type of things. Hamas is constantly trying to make a statement, trying to supposedly surprise us. Indeed, we have both intelligence and operational capabilities, and we are aware of these type of actions. In Pillar of Defense 2 years ago, we struck Hamas UAV capabilities, so it is not a new thing. And this is something that we prepared for, and we have intercepted this morning. Indeed, there is a possibility that there was more than one.
It was armed. The drone that you intercepted, it was armed.
By the Gaza Strip, and the number of troops that you have now in comparison to the last operation?
The forces are enough to carry out the mission as far as we need and we required in order to address the developing threats from the Gaza Strip.
What about the attack from Syria last day?
Sorry?
What about the attack from Syria? What was last day?
Yeah, we had a rocket that was launched in to Syria yesterday. It did not cause any damage, but our understanding it was intentional, and therefore we responded and retaliated against the Syrian military posts.
And what about a second front opening in Lebanon?
We've seen a number of attacks from Lebanon, rockets that have been launched from various factions. We understand it is not Hezbollah. It is something that it was a working assumption that indeed that would happen and could happen. But ultimately what we still have to see is if it is something more than just a symbolic show of support or something more substantial than that.
In Gaza, there has been several dead and several injured, and zero here in Israel. What do you say to those that criticize Israel for that?
We won't apologize for defending our civilians, and I would say Hamas hiding behind the civilians in such a manner, jeopardizing, exploiting the civilian population, putting them in harm's way, dictates how the IDF is actually operating. Indeed, we are using multiple methods in order to strike Hamas terrorist infrastructure, and it is an unfortunate situation the way they abuse the civilian population of Gaza. In this conflict, there is only one party that cares about the people of Gaza, and it isn't Hamas.
Can you explain how you warn before you attack a house with an empty rocket and telephone and leaflets and all these kind of things?
Indeed, we carry out several different types of activities in order to, I would say, forewarn potential civilians that could get in the conflict. Primarily, and you've heard the term knock on the roof, the action takes place as such. First of all, we phone them up. We've released footage of this over the last 2 days. We phone them up, we say we intend to strike. After that, we use a non-explosive munition to send a clear message that we do intend to strike and that people should leave. After that, we carry out visual verification that the people have actually physically left. And only after that do we carry out the strike. We have, over the course of the last week, resisted striking senior terrorists because of potential civilian casualties on at least 14 instances. 14.
What IDF knows about the capability of Hamas to fire to the northern, to Naharia and Hadera and that part of the country?
In March of this year, IDF intercepted a shipment of long-range rockets that we stated then they are headed to Gaza. These are the M302 Syrian-manufactured rockets that were smuggled by Iran and intended to reach the Gaza Strip. These are the type of rockets that we found, and indeed they have a range of anything up to 200 kilometers. So they can reach almost any most areas of the state of Israel, and ultimately they put over 5 million Israelis under threat of fire today.
John Kerry last night apparently said that the Iranians are part of what's happening in Gaza. Do you agree with this statement, and do you think the missiles have been fabricated in Iran?
Indeed, Iran has been involved in rocket shipment in the past. The long-range rockets that we've seen are identical to the shipment that we intercepted in March of this year, and I would conclude that yes, Iran is involved in supporting Hamas terrorism.
Okay, now those who didn't ask question, I want to ask. Sami, לא אתה.
No.
לא אתה, אתה שאלת כבר
We have to ask about Iron Dome. We came here
about
for
the
Iron Dome,
right,
and we want to hear about the Iron Dome. That's why we came here.
נתונים כלליים.
Yeah, but we didn't have it on tape.
Okay, so ask your question, please. Can you ask a question?
We'd like to ask about the Iron Dome. If you can just give us some more details about how many batteries do you have and the success, where are they spread out, just some kind of basic information.
The Iron Dome missile defense system is located throughout the country and protecting the major civilian population areas, and indeed carrying out its mission in an extremely effective way. Throughout the last week, they have intercepted approximately 90% of rockets that were intended to strike civilian populated areas in the indiscriminate rocket fire of Hamas.
How much do you keep track of how many civilian victims there are in Gaza when Israeli rockets strike Gaza?
We carry out activities in order to safeguard Israeli civilian life. Our offensive activities